Ready? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Bottom Line on WNGR-LP 95.5 The Vibe FM in Tigerville. Cole Bryson alongside Brad McGuffin with you for the next hour. Good to have you in the studio, Brad. Pretty good game last night.
It was a great game last night.
You're not excited, are you?
I'm so excited.
A very good defensive game, if you will, between the two squads last night. A lot to talk about in today's show. We'll start with the game itself. Let's focus on the game right now, and the game only, nothing else. So as far as the game, Brad, I saw a lot of comments on social media where people thought the game was bad and boring. Did you think that? I actually enjoyed it, just because it was a defensive battle.
Yeah, it wasn't boring. I mean, it was certainly sloppy play, if that's what they're... I mean, I saw a lot of that too, but it wasn't boring at all. I mean, it was a fun game to watch. It was great defense, hard hitting the whole game. It was just sloppy football.
And, sloppy on the ends of the offense. I think both defenses played phenomenal.
Both defenses brought it. I mean, think about it. The Panthers' defense, not a single Broncos receiver had 100 yards. I mean, they didn't give up. They only allowed C.J. Anderson to run for 90, which, isn't great as far as defense goes. But, you still held them under 100 yards. So, the Panthers' defense played well enough to win the game. It was just the offense wasn't helping them out much.
He rushed for 90 yards. The total offensive yards for Denver was less than 200. How much does that surprise you?
It honestly, if you would have told me that before the game, I would have said Carolina would have won.
Oh, no question about
it. But, now watching the game, really digging into the stats, it doesn't surprise me at all. Because I didn't know that was the exact number, but, thinking about it now, I'm not surprised one bit. Because, other than that opening drive where the Broncos drove it right down the field and had to kick a field goal, that was their most successful drive of the whole game. Yeah. So, after that, it was 3 and out, field goal here, field goal there. But a lot of those came because of turnovers.
Did Denver's defense surprise you? Because they surprised me. I knew they were good. I knew they were good last year. But this year, in the Super Bowl specifically, they were lights out.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised, to an extent. But, the fact that they single-handedly dominated, that's where I was surprised. I knew they'd show up. I didn't think they'd get blown out. But the way they dominated the game is where I was surprised.
I don't think anybody was right with their picks.
No, Curry got...
Very few people.
Yeah, Curry got the score right, just the wrong team.
That's funny.
But, we had talked about it, the last couple weeks. In order for Denver to win the game, they had to play lights out on defense.
Let's talk about that defense for just a little bit. Denver's defense, a couple of their players said that they were the best to ever, play the game, which is laughable. They're good. They're definitely in the conversation, but they're not the best ever. How good is this defense that Denver presented Sunday night?
Thinking about it, the way the rules are so offensive in today's game, you have to give this Broncos defense so much credit.
Oh, I do, absolutely.
Yeah, they sacked Cam 6 times in the game, and, it felt like it was a lot more, to be honest. But, this defense should go down as a top 10.
Oh, no question. No question.
I think, I don't know where in the top 10 you could put them, but in today's game, with the rules so on the side of offense, what they did all year was phenomenal.
Whose defense do you think Denver's defense is better than Carolina's?
Oh, yeah, I think they proved that last night.
I agree. I would say that, in my opinion, they are the best Denver defense to ever play. There's close ties and close comparisons, but this defense as a unit was absolutely phenomenal and fun to watch. Let's talk about this now. Staying with the defense. Compare this defense to Seattle's defense last year and the year before.
I was just about to ask you that. This defense, I think, was better than Seattle's last year. However, 2 years ago, I doubt it.
It was about the same, though.
Yeah, well, Seattle's defense was good last year, but 2 years ago, the year they won the Super Bowl, they were dumb.
Here's what I say about that. Seattle last year and 2 years ago, both years they won in the Super Bowl, their defense was great because they had a lot of superstars. Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman. I mean, one after the other. Who was the linebacker that was so good?
They had Wagner.
Wagner, that's who I like.
Yeah.
I'm a really big Wagner fan. Their defense was a lot of names that everybody knew. You say 2 years ago, Denver's defense was not as good as Seattle's, or Denver's defense this year wasn't as good as Seattle's 2 years ago. I disagree. I think Denver's defense this past year was better than both Seattle defenses the year they won the Super Bowl. As a unit, together, as a unit, remember those words, this defense was better. Like I said, Seattle's defense the past 2 years had a lot of great superstars, but as a unit and all together, Brad, this defense played as a unit, and you could tell that. They were so cohesive. They just glued and gelled together. As a defense, I think this defense as a whole and as a unit was better than those two Seattle defenses. Now, again, superstar-wise, no question. Seattle has better safeties than Denver. Seattle has maybe a better linebacking core than Denver. But as a whole, I'll take Denver. I just think they play together. Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware, they looked like they were 23 years old last night. Von Miller's young, but DeMarcus Ware looked like he was in a rookie or a second-year rookie. He looked as young as ever. I mean, he didn't. And we talked about it earlier today. He doesn't have the injury bug, knock on wood, but
right.
He's healthy. And this past year, he was phenomenal. Last night he was phenomenal. Von Miller is a grown man. That's all there is. Von Miller is a grown man. He is an absolute beast. And you know what? Somebody's going to have to back the truck up to pay him because he's about to get paid. He is an absolute monster, and I would take this Denver defense over the Seattle defenses from the past 2 years. This defense they were quietly dominating. They were just dominating on all phases of the game. They've been doing that all year long. I just was very, very, very impressed with this defense from Denver. Let's talk about Denver's offense. There's not much to talk about. But were you surprised that late in the game when they needed a score, Denver just kept running the ball?
Yeah, I felt like they were a little bit too conservative for the majority of the game.
Yeah, all of it.
I don't know the exact number, but we talked about this last night. I want to know how many times they ran the ball on third down in the second half. Or
every time?
Yeah, I believe it was almost every time, whether it was third and short or third and long, they ran the ball. And, yeah, I know your defense was playing great. You put them back on the field. But, for a while there, it felt like you were going to need a touchdown to win the game. And, granted, they got that off a turnover late, but, it all worked out for Denver. But if they were to somehow lose that game last night, that's all we'd be talking about.
What impresses me so much? You're right. What impresses me so much about this game last night is it seemed, what? Brad, you watched the AFC Championship. It seemed as if Denver had this game plan all night long, where we're going to do the same thing we did against New England. We're going to score, a little bit. If we're faced with third and long, we're not going to try and convert. We're going to just get a dump off pass or a run, give our punter a little more leg room and punt the ball, and we're going to rely on our defense. To me, it was the same as the AFC Championship for Denver offensively. They did the exact same thing, and it just seemed like they had a game plan. They were so, and you know what? You hear players say a lot, Brad. Well, we just do us. We do the same. We have the same game plan every week. But Denver showed last night that they're true to what they do. That they are so true, and they had the same game plan last night as they did in the AFC Championship game. And guess what? It worked. And if you would have told me last night, Brad, going into last night, hey, Denver's going to do the same thing they did against New England. They're going to be real conservative at times and not try to score. I'd have said they're going to get blown out. Blown out.
Real quick, I want to go back to the defensive statistic you were talking about just a minute ago with Seattle. I was looking this up. So I don't know how old this article is. It's January of last year. So I'd love to see this updated with Denver in this. This is the top 20 defenses of all time. Seattle was number 4 on this list, and they had 28.
What is that based on? Stats or?
Yeah, this is all stats. So they gave up 16 touchdowns that year defensively through the air, but they had 28 interceptions, 44 sacks, and let's see.
How many interceptions?
28 interceptions. So, that's
God.
a lot of interceptions. The most all time is.
That's almost 2 a game.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's 2 a game. I don't see. There's a bunch of numbers on here, but yeah, that's just putting that defense into perspective.
But like I said, number-wise and stat-wise, Seattle will probably be better because they have those playmakers, they have those superstars. But I still think as a unit, Denver's better.
Yeah, they're so similar in how they attack. That Seattle defense was physical, just like this Denver defense. I think secondary-wise, that Seattle defense was probably better. But as a D line,
I can agree with that.
Yeah, as a D line front 7, I would totally agree Denver was probably better.
All right, we've talked about Denver's defense. We've talked about the lack of offense for Denver, less than 200 yards. Let's talk about Carolina's defense. They came out, and you know what? They played a pretty phenomenal game as well.
They did. That first opening drive, they blitzed a couple times early, got burned. But that opening drive, Denver dominated. But after that, dominated the line of scrimmage. After that, Carolina was able to get into the backfield. They were able to cause, some eruptions and stuff like that. But it was just, they played well enough to win the game.
Here's what I was surprised about. I was surprised that Carolina's secondary, as good as the talks have been all year, they didn't play good last night.
No, the secondary did not play as good last night.
And you know what? Denver's receivers, they're good. They're not special.
Yeah, they don't have any superstars. They have they have Emmanuel Sanders. They have, Caldwell, who's good. Owen Daniels is a good tight end, but he only had 1 catch.
I like him a lot.
They have Demaryius Thomas, but he only had 1 catch last night.
Yeah, I just think that South Carolina. Oh God, that Carolina's defense, the secondary especially, was kind of lackluster last night. I was just, especially on that touchdown, almost to be touchdown. Peyton had a guy just straight zip across the end zone, and Josh Norman got called for the holding call, defensive holding. That was just bad play defensively, and I thought a lot of the Carolina's defense wasn't bad up front, and the linebacker core, as usual, did a great job. But the secondary was a little off. Carolina's offense, they were a garbage fire. They were a dumpster fire. It was ugly. They just never. I'll tell you this: when I watched them last night, there were times where they had big plays and they made plays to get some momentum. But it seemed like every time they got some momentum, every time they made a big play, it either came back to bite them with a penalty
or turnover. And you talk about how bad their offense was. Look at their special teams last night.
That was terrible.
Yeah, their special teams last night was awful. Gano hadn't missed all postseason, and then that field goal,
and that wasn't a long field goal either.
Yeah, it hit the upright, just bounced off, and and plus that punt return, the 61-yard punt.
What was the deal there?
I don't know.
I have a theory. Let me hear your theory.
Honestly, I just believe that the Panthers assumed he called a fair catch, and just let it play out. But you can't assume anything. You make the tackle. And I don't remember who returned it. Was it Caldwell who returned that one?
I think so.
Give him all the credit in the world. He made a smart heads-up play. He just kept it going. And then Carolina just wasn't ready. They had the 2 guys right there. Both had their hands on him, and then just touched them and let them go. I will never understand that.
I don't know what happened now. Last night I was watching the game with about 10, 15 Carolina Panther fans. And what I thought was, they were all saying, why did they stop? They didn't call a fair catch. And I was thinking, well, maybe Caldwell yelled fair catch.
Yeah, that could totally be.
Because if he yelled fair catch, then players would have stopped. But he didn't throw his hands up.
Yeah, so the rule is you have to have your hand up.
Right.
You can say whatever you want.
Right. So I was thinking maybe he yelled fair catch and they heard him, but I didn't hear any reports of that. I didn't hear any, interviews of that, so I don't know if that was true or not. But that's what I thought as soon as it happened. I said, I bet you he yelled it. I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't know any other reason that if you don't hear whistles, why you stop. Why Carolina just stands there. The ball's caught, you don't hear whistles, hit somebody.
Yeah, and that's what I would do. If you're in the situation, if you don't know, you hit him, and if it's a penalty, it's a penalty. But
or you stand in front of them.
Yeah.
I mean, face to face. Don't back off.
You'd much rather take the penalty or stand in front of them
than a 60-yard return and give up the longest special teams punt return in Super Bowl history.
For a second there, I don't know that when he hit that sideline. It just put a flashback in my head of Alabama Auburn a couple years ago. The Panthers had all their bigger guys on the field and just didn't have much speed to catch up to him. And then finally he got run out of bounds late.
And he wasn't even that fast.
Yeah, he wasn't even that fast. He had great blocking.
So Carolina's offense, we talked about them. They were bad, obviously. Like I said, I think the reason they never got in a groove was just because every time they did they had a couple of big plays. There was a couple of times where I said, oh, crap, they're about to get rolling. And then, like you said, a turnover either happened or a penalty. And that really killed him. And I think Cam, he wasn't there mentally, and I think that hurt a little bit as well. But what's the deal with Cam not diving on the ball?
There's a lot of people, granted, on social media, so I was talking to you about this earlier. In that situation, if that was me, I don't care if I get hurt. I need to protect the football.
But I don't think he was worried about getting hurt.
I don't know what he was doing. He saw the football, and I think he just froze. And, you cannot freeze in big games.
From the replay, I've heard people say that he didn't see the Denver guy there. From the replay, maybe I can see him seeing the ball. Because at first when the ball came out, a Carolina player fell right on it. So maybe he saw that and was like, well, the Carolina player's got it, and he just didn't want to risk an injury or whatever. But as soon as that Carolina player fell on it, it's like he just popped it up. He just hit the ball and just started rolling. And Denver fell on it, and Cam was just standing there. I mean, I just don't know. I felt like if Cam would have got that ball back, they could have punted it away, made a stop because they'd been making stops all night, had the ball out with 2 minutes to go, and won the ball game.
Here's another thing. It was 4th and whatever there late in the game. The game was over. It was 4th and whatever, under 2 minutes left. Do you agree with Carolina punting, or do you think they should have gone for it?
I think so. I think that because they've been making stops all night, and I don't see any reason not to. I mean, their defense was playing good. I think punt was a good call.
Personally, if I was the head coach, I would have gone for it because you have nothing else to lose. But, Michael Ward got exposed last night. We had talked about this last
night. He got blindsided.
Yeah, he did.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
He got exposed, and it was either you or someone said that could happen.
Yeah.
And there was a point.
I told you Wednesday.
There was a point early in the game that it was after one of the first. I think it was the second after the first drive. Carolina had the ball. DeMarcus Ware brought over Von Miller, and he told him. I don't know if you saw this, but he says if we start switching, then they won't stop us. They had the mic on.
Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware, not only are they good players, they're smart.
Yeah, and as soon as they did that, Von Miller comes in there, strips the ball out, and they fall on it for
He's fun to watch.
Oh, he's a blast to watch.
Oh, my gosh.
When he comes off the ball, he's got one of the quickest first steps you'll ever see.
That was absolutely phenomenal. We talked about both offenses, talked about both defenses, talked about Cam not falling on the ball. Let's talk about the officiating. At first, it was kind of rough in the early get-go. A lot of Panthers fans obviously, had to have an excuse. So the first excuse was, we got cheated. Was that a catch early on?
No, it wasn't.
I heard a lot of Panthers. As soon as that happened, without even looking at Twitter or anything, my first gut reaction, I tweeted out, I said it was absolutely not a catch. And I didn't even look at any other social media. And then all of a sudden I tweeted it out and I looked, and everybody's saying it was. It was a catch. It was a catch. It never hit the ground. I had so many people tweet at me last night and say, yeah, Cole, it was a catch. It never hit the ground. Guess what? It don't have to hit the ground and not be a catch. If you watch the replay, Brad, you see him catch the ball from where he caught the ball all the way to the ground. He never at one time had full possession. Even when he hit the ground, the ball slid up his shoulder, and he never had full possession. I know that nowadays everybody thinks, well, it didn't hit the ground, he caught it. That's perceived as a catch, and it should be, but it's not. It doesn't matter if it hits the ground. He never had full possession. And I'm a Dallas fan, so I know what a catch is. 2 years ago, or last year in the playoffs, the exact same thing happened. Caught the ball, fell to the ground, never had full possession. Like that catch, he just never had full possession. And I don't think there was enough on the field to overturn it.
I think Mike Carey explained it well last night.
Yeah, and the head of officiating, the guy that's always in New York, tweeted it out as soon as it happened. He tweeted out the explanation. I'll read it to you. He tweeted it out. Obviously, he has to cover his butt because, he's the head. But his explanation seemed pretty legit.
Yeah, he said on air, right when they...
Yeah, he came on there.
He said it was a catch. He said it was a catch. Now...
Before they reviewed it, right?
Before they reviewed it. And this is they need to do something because it's different than the rule book, I'm pretty sure. I think the actual rule and the rule book...
See, I don't think it is. I think what the deal is... Here's the first problem. With the whole catch thing, the problem is everybody that plays football, that knows football, perceives a catch as this. Close your eyes. You catch the ball. You fall to the ground. You get up without the ball hitting the ground. You know what? Maybe that's what it should be. But it's not. The rule book clearly states that if he's acting as a runner, which, receivers are acting as runners after they catch it, he must maintain total possession of the ball all the way to the ground. And he didn't. I mean, you can say what you want, but he didn't. I mean, You saw it. Dean Blandino, who I follow on Twitter, who always tweets out explanations as soon as the call happens, he said on the Carolina challenge, the ball touched the ground and slid up his body. So when he fell, I believe it barely touched. I didn't see that, but he said it barely touched the ground and slid up his body. Not enough evidence to change the call on the field. He didn't give a huge explanation, but I just don't think it was a catch. I mean, by rule, it wasn't a catch. Now, should it have been a catch? I've had people text me all day today say you're biased against the Panthers. You're just a Panther hater. Okay, say that all you want. I may be, but the fact of the matter is, the rule book states that you have to have possession all the way to the ground, and he didn't. He just didn't. Sorry.
And I believe a lot of people are getting it confused because if that was a college game, that would have been a catch because the ball never hit the ground. Well, that we could see full evidence that the ball hit the ground. If that was college, it would have been a catch because in college, if you have control of the ball and it doesn't hit the ground, it's a catch.
I think the difference between college and NFL is as long as it's in your control and it doesn't hit the ground, it's a catch. I think in NFL, the rule states that you have to maintain possession, acting as a runner, all the way to the ground, and he didn't. Calvin Johnson didn't. Des Bryant didn't. I mean, that's what the rule is. I mean, does it? Yeah, it looked like a catch. Yeah, Des Bryant's looked like a catch too, but according to the rule, it wasn't.
I mean, common sense tells you if the ball's moving around, then you don't have possession of it.
Right.
And so that's...
And you know what? Maybe that's the way it should be. We're just not used to that because we're just so caught up in the college football world that we're not used to that. But that's what the rule states. And you know what? I hate it for you. Sorry. The refs didn't give you the game, though. I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, I mean...
I have heard it.
Yeah, I've seen it all over social media today, too, that the refs cost the Panthers the game. The refs didn't do... I mean, the refs had a great game, I think. The refs made the right calls. There wasn't any blatantly wrong call. I mean, they did a great job as a unit.
And you know what? Is it the ref's fault that you got 10 holding calls on your own offense?
Or turned it over 4 times?
Is that the ref's fault?
Yeah, I don't think that is.
Holding call after eligible on a punt. Tell you guys not to go downfield. I say as simple as that. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean
that's not the ref's fault. That's your fault. It's the coach's fault.
And going back to the college game real quick too, a lot of Panthers fans I know personally are huge college football fans. And if you think about it, we've seen a lot less holding calls in college football in the last 6-7 years. So, in the NFL game, it's a lot different. You always see a holding. And college is not always the case. So, when you're watching an NFL game, you're going to see a lot more holdings because, they call it every time.
They do. And you know what? I hate it for the Panthers. But at the same time,
what do you expect? When you turn the ball over 4 times, you cannot win a Super Bowl.
To be the man, you got to beat the man.
Yep.
And last night, the Carolina Panthers, they weren't the man. Last night, Cam Newton was not the man. Last night, Cam Newton threw up on himself.
Yep. I mean, you could tell early on.
Well, it's like this. Me and you were texting the whole game, and I told you early on, and I said, you know what? I think it was the first quarter. I texted you. I said, the Broncos might win this game. And you said, it's early. And I agreed. It was early, but you could just tell there was a sense of, man, this defense is like for real. You could just kind of tell that Cam Newton wasn't playing his best game. And you know what? Cam really never fixed anything. I heard somebody else say that today. If you look at it, Denver kind of played the same game. They made adjustments here and there, but that's another thing I didn't really think about much last night is Carolina's coaching staff, man, they got to be a little bit on the blame. They didn't make any adjustments at halftime.
No, they
didn't. None.
No, yeah, you're right. They didn't at all. I mean, they were down 13-7.
The whole game, it was a one-possession ball game. Make adjustments so you can score at least once and be back on top.
Coming into the second half, they had some momentum coming out of halftime.
Getting the
they
ball.
Had their opportunities.
Yeah.
And they just didn't capitalize. And, it was midway through the third quarter. I texted you. I said, if Denver doesn't score, they're in trouble. And because Carolina had all the momentum in the world. And then they start turning the ball over again, and Denver capitalized, and just Carolina could not rebound.
Will Carolina be back next year?
I don't know. We'll see in a couple. I'll answer that.
Answer it now. Will Carolina be back next year?
I honestly don't know right now.
If you had to say, if I said yes or no,
I'd say no right now.
Okay.
But they need to do some personnel changes. I think they need to keep Josh Norman.
Here's the thing about it. This in the NFL is more than college. In the NFL, when you're winning, everything's okay. I'm going to give you a prime example. The Seattle Seahawks. When you're winning ball games, guess what? Everybody likes each other. Everybody's friends. Everybody has camaraderie together. Nobody's mad at each other. But guess what? When you start to lose, people get mad at each other. When you start to lose, people point fingers. When you start to lose, people's emotions get in the way. It's going to be interesting to see this offseason if the Panthers can rebound. And if they have a year like they did last year, I'll be impressed. We saw it in Seattle. They were able to go back-to-back with both Super Bowls. But do you remember at the beginning of this year what happened? Seattle had, 4 players not starting? One starting because his feelings were hurt. Another starting because he wasn't getting paid. He was getting paid, millions of dollars, but he wasn't getting paid enough.
Yeah.
So it's easy to say now as Panther fans, hey, we'll be back. But this isn't college football where you just reload. Guess what? This is a business.
Yeah.
People have contracts. Coaches leave. Players leave. People get hurt.
Someone told me earlier, I don't know if it's true, I need to look it up, but someone told me earlier the Panthers have never had bad winning seasons. I don't know. I need to look that up to be sure.
Well, it's only been 15, 20 years,
Yeah, however, I think the Panthers I think they'll have a winning season next year. I mean, they're not going to fall that far.
I think so, too.
But here's the thing about the Panthers. Look at Denver last year, how good they were in the regular season. They lost to the Colts in the first round of the playoffs. This year they struggled, in the middle part of the year.
Yeah.
But they were healthy and they were ready to play come playoff time. That could be the Panthers next year. They might lose more games next year, but once you're in the playoffs with the defense like the Panthers have and a quarterback like Cam, they could get back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think so. Will they? I don't know. If I had to say right now, I'd say no.
Yeah, I would too right now.
But it's easy to say yes, just because the emotions, especially if you're a Panther fan. Yeah, we'll be back. I mean, for me, Clemson this year, we'll be back. It's easy to say that, but
it's hard to
the
go
NFL.
Back.
It's a business, man. It's a business. It's in college. This is a business. Things change. So maybe you'll be back. Hopefully, you may not. Is this Peyton Manning's career? Is it over?
It should be. I don't know why.
If you had to bet money on it, would you say it is?
Probably, yes. I don't know why he'd want to come back. He's the winningest quarterback of all time.
You know what?
He won the Super Bowl.
You can hate the man. And I saw a Panthers fan last night on Facebook say, man, I love the Panthers and I can't stand Peyton Manning.
I don't know how anybody could say that. I mean, he's never been – I know he's won a lot of games and it's easy to not like a guy who wins a lot. But, he's not arrogant. He's not cocky. He just
You know
plays
what?
football and he goes home.
I'm glad to see him ride out on the Bronco, on the pony, on the horse, in the sunset, because he deserves it. He really does. That's the real reason. I'm going to be honest. I pulled for Denver. That's the main reason. If it had been Carolina and Kansas City, is Kansas City in the AFC?
Yeah, they are.
If it had been Carolina and Kansas City, I really wouldn't have given a poop who would have won. To be honest, I know this sounds crazy. I might have pulled for Carolina a little bit. I wouldn't care. But I wanted to see Peyton go out on top, so I pulled for the Broncos. And you know what? Before the game started, let's go back 2 weeks ago when me and you made our picks. I made the pick, and then last night I tweeted it out. Man, I don't know if I'm wrong. I was sitting there thinking, man, I predicted Denver to score 23, 24 points. I don't know if they'll sniff 24 points. They did, but guess what?
I think
Before
you said,
the game,
34-23, something like that?
34-23. Before the game, I was thinking, there's no way Denver will score 20 points. I was just thinking, oh, man, here we go again. Carolina's going to roll just like they did on Seattle, just like they did against Arizona. It's just going to be a halftime Super Bowl, and that'll be it. But, you know what? Thankfully, I was wrong. I'm glad to be wrong on that one because I'm happy for Peyton, happy to see him ride out on the sunset with his buds and his women, and his money, because Lord knows he's got it.
Yeah. And, I love how Peyton embraced that with his teammates last night. He's never been a guy, obviously to get in your face.
Right.
But he loves giving credit to his teammates.
Oh, that's all he does. That's all he does.
How can you not like a guy like that? I mean,
trivia real quick. What color was the Gatorade? Do you remember?
It was orange.
You're right. I don't remember what the prop bet said, but let me ask you this. I didn't see many haters on Twitter and haters on Facebook about the halftime show, but I thought, Brad, I'm not a lady. Let me just start at the national anthem. I'm not a Lady Gaga fan. I'm not a Beyonce fan. I like Bruno a little bit. I'm not a Coldplay fan. But starting at the national anthem, Lady Gaga killed it.
Oh, I was shocked at how good she did.
And then going to the halftime show, that was phenomenal.
Yeah,
I sat there and I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, everything. Whoever's in charge of that, they need to keep doing that because
that was just fun to watch. And then did you see the part of the halftime show where I believe it was Coldplay singing and they were going back to the memories of all the other halftime performances?
That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
You know what? You can hate on Beyonce, you can hate on Coldplay, you can hate on, who was it? Bruno. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was just fun to watch, and it just made everybody smile. I mean, everybody that I was with, 10, 15 people, everybody loved it. It was awesome.
Yeah. Put the songs aside. I didn't even care about the songs as much. It's just what you just mentioned with the flashbacks of all the Super Bowl performances. I mean, that was the coolest part to me because, growing up watching the Super Bowl every year.
Right. What about the Hall of Famers at the beginning? Did you like that?
I did.
Kind of got long-winded.
It did. Yeah, a little bit.
And the Dallas Cowboy and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh, God.
What? I like how they did Super Bowl by Super Bowl.
But, Brad, I'm sorry to interrupt. We're young. A lot of not old people, but older people loved it because those guys that they mentioned have been playing all their life.
Right.
The people I was with, they were all older than me and they loved it. So, for people that have been watching those guys, that was phenomenal.
Do you like how they did it by Super Bowl, or do you think next time they should do it by team?
No. I think the way they did it was good.
Yeah. Some people were talking about how Peyton wanted to come out on the field right before his brother. I think it was funny when they showed him in the locker room. He was just he was facing the opposite direction, drinking the Gatorade. I thought that was really funny because, I don't think that Broncos wanted him to go out onto the field.
Let me ask you this: What was the deal with Eli? Why did he look so disappointed when they? I mean, you saw that?
Yeah, I saw the clip.
What was wrong?
I don't know. I guess
I'm wanting to say, okay, he was just being confident, and he was just being overconfident. He just wanted to make sure it was over until he looked happy. He looked upset.
Yeah, he did.
He looked like he just got bad news.
The video clip I saw, it was captioned, "When you're no longer the favorite son."
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah.
And it's funny, but he, when Peyton won his Super Bowl in 2006. Eli won his in 2007.
Yeah. And it could happen. The commercials were terrible.
They were. It's one of the worst it's ever been.
I feel like the commercials are getting worse and worse every year.
Yeah, well, part of that's because they're so expensive.
Right, but still, come on.
Yeah,
I saw funnier commercials today on television than I did last night. And I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah, I don't know who's in charge of picking the commercials, but yeah. We didn't see the Clydesdale horses, which I was disappointed because it is the Broncos.
Those were awesome commercials.
The dog commercials, the Dorito commercials, once again, were great. But, I was expecting better, and we just didn't get it. Too many. I know it's an election year and blah 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 blah, but too many campaign commercials. I don't want to worry about that in the Super Bowl.
As a whole product, from start to beginning, better than last year's Super Bowl, including everything. Yes or no?
No.
Really?
I think putting the game as a huge factor in that, last year's game was a lot better.
This is hard. This is really hard. Last year's storyline was good, but this year's storyline was awesome.
It was a great storyline, and of course, Peyton Being's last game. But speaking football only, how the game was played,
I agree.
Last year's game was better, but the halftime show this year was phenomenal. And you go like you said, the storyline, put that together. It's certainly up there as a great full story and everything. But no, the answer is no to your point.
All right, take a deep breath. I know it. It's a touchy subject. People don't like to talk about it. Emotions get involved. Fan feelings get involved. I talked about it last week on the show. Just how I wasn't a Cam Newton fan, and people called me crazy. They called me, believe it or not, people called me racist, and I talked about that last week. It has nothing to do with race. It's just his character. And you know what? Last night, Cam Newton proved to me, he hadn't won me over yet. Cam Newton has not won me over. To this day, at 6:39 on February 8th, I'm still not a Cam Newton fan. And you know what? I was hoping I could be. I was hoping that during the Super Bowl he would put on a show, and win or lose, it'd be a class act. Now, I will say this. Shaking Peyton Manning's hand at the very, very end of the ball game was a class act. But don't give me, he shook Peyton Manning's hand. You're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
You're supposed to shake the quarterback's hand. I understand that he was smiling and he looked happy then. But for me, like Stephen A. said this morning, Cam Newton had a chance last night to show that he was a big boy, that he was growing up. But guess what?
He spoke brief.
He didn't.
Stephen A.
We'll hear from Stephen A. and Skip in a minute on what they thought, Brad. But last night, when his post-game press conference, he got up there, and granted, some of the questions weren't great questions. But you know what? At the same time, Cam looked the fool. He looked like not like a coward. I don't want to say coward, but he kind of like a brat.
If you want to be a role model, which on the field, what he's done this year as a role model, phenomenal. Giving the footballs to the kids, all that, that's great. Doing what he does with the Children's Club, that's great. But in order to be a role model, you have to be a role model off the field too. And, he is to a certain extent. But that press conference was terrible. You cannot be a role model and act like that in front of cameras.
People said, Cole, the questions that he was asked, you couldn't answer them. So I have looked up and I have researched and discovered the transcript of all the questions asked. And I'm going to read the questions to you. And I want you to stop me if you hear a question and you tell me, say, Cole, that shouldn't have been asked. Here we go. What's your message to the Panther fans? Answer. We'll be back. Question 2. Ron Rivera said Denver 2 years ago had a tough time and they bounced back. Do you take that to heart? Answer. No. Question 3. Can you put a finger on why Carolina didn't play the way it normally plays? Answer. Got outplayed. Question 4. Is there a reason why you got outplayed? Answer. Got outplayed, bro. Question 5. Was it pretty much what you had seen on film from Denver? Anything different they put in for this game? Nope, nothing different. Which is absolutely crap. I'll get back to that in a minute. Question 6. Do we sometimes forget that defenses can still take apart the offenses in this game? Answer, nope. Next question. What did Ron Rivera say after the game? He said a lot of things. Anything in particular that was memorable? Nope. So playing in the Super Bowl wasn't memorable. Obviously, you're disappointed. On the biggest stage is difficult. I know. Nods his head. Somebody was agreeing with him. Did you see anything that you didn't expect tonight? Second time that question was asked. They played better than us. I don't know what you want me to say. They made more plays, and that's what it comes down to. We had our opportunities. Nothing special they did. We dropped balls. We turned the ball over. Gave up sacks. Threw errant passes. That's it. They scored more points than us. Can you put into words the disappointment you feel right now? We lost. Did Denver change anything defensively to take away your running lanes? No. I know you're disappointed not just for yourself but your teammates. It's got to be real tough. I'm done, man. I want to go back real quick. Cam Newton, the longest he talked, he said, they just played better than us. I don't know what you want me to say. They made more plays than us, and that's what it comes down to. We had our opportunities. It wasn't nothing special that they did. That is a load of bull. Denver's defense wasn't special. Von Miller wasn't special. DeMarcus Ware wasn't special. Cam Newton got sacked more than he ever had all season, correct?
Yeah, and Malik Jackson also played great.
But that wasn't special?
Yeah. Oh.
How was that not special? To sit there and say that they didn't do anything special drives me crazy because not only are you lying, you're disrespecting that team. You just said they didn't do anything special. They put pressure on you all night long, and they didn't do anything special. They shut down the number one scoring offense in all of the NFL, but yet they didn't do anything special.
The only question I can say that shouldn't have been asked, I believe it was your second question. I don't know if you still have that pulled up. That was the one question where I can agree it should not have been asked.
His father came on this show in San Francisco and proclaimed.
The second question was Ron Rivera said Denver had a tough time and they bounced back. Do you take that to heart?
I don't understand why you would ask that question. I mean, Denver did get embarrassed, and they did bounce back. I don't know what you would expect Cam to say because of that. He had nothing to do with Denver bouncing back.
I can agree. But again, Cam's answers to the questions were lackluster. And you know what? That's not my biggest problem. My biggest problem is I'm done, man. And he gets up and walks off. Guess what? A couple of things. You want the spotlight to be on you 24/7, which I'm totally okay with. You want the spotlight to be on you when you're dabbing. You want the spotlight to be on you when you're running up and down the sidelines acting a fool. You want the spotlight to be on you when you're handing balls to kids. But wait a minute. You're telling me when you lose you don't want the spotlight? You're telling me when you lose your feelings are hurt? I understand it's the Super Bowl. I understand I've never played in the Super Bowl. I understand that that's a big moment. But guess what? Luke Kuechly answered 4 minutes of questions. Thomas Davis, who had a broken right arm, answered questions. Greg Olsen answered questions for over 2 minutes. And Cam didn't give us anything. Nothing. That is inexcusable. Stephen A. Smith, who I've grown to like lately, believe it or not, said it this morning. It was pathetic. He said what we learned was Cam Newton still has a lot of growing up to do. Cam Newton still has a lot of maturing. And as I said earlier, Brad, Cam Newton had a platform last night where he could have came out after that loss and he could have, you know what, he could have made me be a little bit of a Cam Newton fan. Somebody on Twitter last night, who I'm friends with, before the press conference after the game, tweeted, I wonder what Cam's presser will be. This will be a big moment for him. And guess what he did? He fumbled.
Yeah, he fumbled.
Again.
Fourth one of the night.
I just don't understand. I just do not understand how you can tell me that I'm wrong for not liking a guy that hands balls to kids after every touchdown. I love that. I told you last week. I'd already talked about that. No need to get back into that. I just don't see how you can tell me that there's no need to dislike a guy that is so talented. And like we talked about last show, I said right now he's the most talented quarterback in the NFL. But you can't tell me that I can't like a guy that when he's at his highs, he's likable, he's fun. But when he's at his lows, it's all about Cam. Cam's dad got up on First Take last week before the Super Bowl, either the day before or 2 days before, and talked and raved and bragged, Brad, for 20, 30 minutes of how Cam Newton has grown up to be such a special young man, how he's a phenomenal player, which I totally agree with, and how he is just a great guy. Which I agree with. He said he's just matured so much. If you're going to get up there and talk about your son for as long as he did, make sure you tell your son that you talked about him. Because Cam Newton obviously didn't know that his dad talked about how. Give me the excuses. I've heard excuses all day long. Brad, he shouldn't have got up and walked off. I don't care that Denver's press conference was going on 25 yards to the left. Guess what? I'm sorry. That's part of it. Didn't he sign up to be a quarterback in the NFL? Don't most quarterbacks stay for the press? Isn't that part of being a quarterback, giving press conferences, not only after wins, but after losses?
If he would have just said, I don't want to answer any more questions, I'd like to leave, that would have been a totally different thing. But just the way he left, you just can't do that. If
he had his head down the whole time.
Yeah. If he would have just said, I don't feel like answering any more questions at this time, I'd like to leave, then
I just felt like I was watching Marshawn Lynch. I mean, Cam, they're asking you. Or Popovich. I agree. Some of the questions, very few of the questions were just very boring, basic, bad questions, but the majority weren't. I mean, what's your excuse? Guess what? That's part of it. Like I said, if you want the spotlight on you when you're winning, in my opinion, I may be wrong, and I probably am to the Panther fans out there, but you need the spotlight on you when you lose. Because, like I said, Greg Olsen didn't have any problem giving any interviews. Thomas Davis and all the other guys, they didn't have any problems giving interviews after the game. But guess who did? Your leader, your quarterback, your franchise guy that everybody looks up to, got up and left. And that's pathetic. Yep. Criticize me? Tell me I'm a Cam hater? Tell me I'm a Panther hater? Brad, you might have a couple extra dollars in your pocket if I gave you $1 for every time today that I've been told, tweeted at, and texted, I'm a Cam and Panther hater. I hate on the Panthers more than I pull for the Cowboys because I like the Cowboys, which is absolutely stupid. But I want to say, Cam last night, going into the Super Bowl, he made a case for being a likable guy. But guess what? Like I said, when he had a moment to really captivate the audience and really win fans over, he ruined it. And like Stephen A. Smith said this morning, Cam's got a lot of growing up to do.
Yeah, and hopefully he'll learn from this because, like we talked about last week, on the field, you have to respect his talents. But, all this ties in together. If he is going to be a whole new person and all that, he's got to be better in media situations anyway.
It just reminds me of what I talked about last week.
Yeah.
I talked about last week how back in the days, the Panther fans don't remember it because they weren't fans then, but back in the day, 2 or 3 years ago when he lost, he'd go to the opposite end of the bench and he'd point fingers. After there was one, I don't know if it happened more than once, but after one game, he was caught pointing fingers at his teammates. It's all going back. Guess what? What he's shown me is he's the same person he was last year. He's shown me he was the same person he was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. He hasn't changed, and that's who he is.
One of the guys on NFL Live last night said, I can't remember which one, but he said the only reason why he acted like that is because he didn't want to blame his teammates, because that's what he was thinking. That's it. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think Cam was going to blame his teammates.
You know what? I don't disagree with that. I'm sorry. I don't.
In his head, he could probably think, if the offensive line would have blocked it and fumbled 3 times.
But you can't blame the defense.
Yeah, you cannot
blame
the
who you going to blame?
Yeah, if he would have blamed anybody, it would have had to been the offensive line.
Or blame the receivers for dropping balls.
He overthrew half.
He early on and even late, you're exactly right. He overthrew a lot of people, receivers. But you know what? As we saw earlier, there were a lot of dropped balls. I mean, in the hands. You dropped them. And that just goes to show that Carolina's receiving core isn't great. When you're winning, you seem like the best, but guess what? You're not.
Jonathan Stewart last night, he got hurt early, and he came back, and I know he didn't do a lot, numbers-wise, but he blocked last night. He wasn't healthy. Jonathan Stewart's getting old, so give him credit last night. He was not healthy at all. I mean, he was hurting, but he did everything he could to help out Cam, and it just wasn't there for him. But we were talking about Peyton retiring. How much longer is Jonathan Stewart
Stewart's not old.
How old is he?
27.
27? Yeah, I mean, he's getting up there, certainly. I mean, he's been in the league a while. He's taking a lot of hits. He's
on his older as D'Angelo Williams?
Yeah, I'd love
He's
to
32.
see him. Yeah. Well,
Mike Tolbert's 30.
Marshawn's what, 29?
29?
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see John Stewart play a couple more years.
And he will.
Yeah, he's a great running back. He's fun to watch. I hate it for him because, he's been a guy that's been in Carolina his whole career and just hadn't really been able to get much credit.
I hate it for Jonathan Stewart. He's a likable guy. I hate it for Rivera. Rivera, he's a good guy.
He's a great coach.
I hate it for Cameron Artis Payne, whatever it is.
Yeah, he's young.
You know why? Because I like him. What I'm doing right now is I'm just naming the people that I actually like on that team. I'm not a Kuechly fan. I'm not an Olsen fan. I'm not a Cam fan. So for the few guys that I do like, congrats on a great season, but you came up short. Going back to Denver, another reason I pulled for him is there's people on that team that I'm a fan of. Denver has a lot of guys that have been in a lot of places. Kubiak's a heck of a coach. I'm not a Kubiak fan. I just never liked. I mean, I don't dislike him. I just haven't found interest in him. I've always liked Wade Phillips. Obviously, I've always liked Peyton just because he's a likable guy. We talked about that. And then also, I'm a huge DeMarcus Ware fan because he played for the Cowboys. So there was a lot of people on that team, a lot of players on that team that I liked, and that's another reason I was pulling for him. I just don't like a lot of players on the Panthers. That's another reason I don't like the Panthers. Is there's a lot of players on their team I don't like.
A couple local ties from Denver to South Carolina as a state. Darian Stewart, he played at Carolina back in 2009. He played great, and then the Broncos strength and conditioning coach used to be the strength and conditioning coach for Clemson.
Clemson, right?
Yeah, I don't know when, but he was. I saw that last night.
Well, I want to say thank you to everybody that's listening tonight. The night went by really fast.
It did.
We didn't even take a commercial. We want to thank everybody that listened. Be sure to tune in Wednesday as we talk about some other things. I want to talk about Johnny Manziel tonight. Didn't have time. We'll talk about him Wednesday. You've been listening to The Bottom Line on WNGR LP 95.5 The Vibe. This is The Bottom Line with Brad McGuffin and Cole Bryson.